السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمد الله ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, welcome back to our 6th episode of our series, The Saviors of Islam, where we are discussing the great legends of Islam that have left a mark and a legacy all throughout the world. Today we'll be speaking about a legend and a personality that was used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect Islam from all the vices and fitnas that came from external means, such as the philosophers of Greek and Rome and Spain, and also became an individual and a pillar of Islam that was used to protect our religion internally from all the vices and fitnas of that time that had risen, such as the Zahiris and such as the different types of Mu'tazilites and rationalists. He became the pillar of protecting Islam. He became the symbol of intellect. He became the symbol of an individual who was used to debate against all of these different types of people to protect the sanctity of Islam. Not only Islam, but to protect the truthfulness of our creed of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And he continued this journey of knowledge and this journey of him being a legend to conjure up and create, to start this concept of bringing usul and principles through which people can derive laws and different types of rulings. Until today, we are using these types of laws and these types of principles to derive various rulings and laws and masail. And this was none other than the great Imam al-A'zam, Imam al-Muslimin, like Abdullah ibn Mubarak would call him. And he was none other than Nu'man ibn Thabit, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala.
دع الأيام تفعل ما تشاء وطب نفسا إذا حكم القضاء ولا تجزع لحادثة الليالي فما لحوادث الدنيا بقاء.
Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was born in the era of the Tabi'een. He met Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu at the age of 13 or 14 years old. Imam Abu Hanifa, in reality, believe it or not, was not a youngster or a student that was interested in immersing himself in the studies of knowledge in the sciences of Islam. He was a normal youngster, a normal young man that was actually blessed with the affluence of the wealth of the world. And he was a very wealthy tradesman and a very wealthy businessman. Once he was going on a trade to sell his cloth, and while he's walking towards his destination, he stops in a masjid to pray his salah, and he gets up after salah and there's a gathering that's taking place, and he starts walking away. The muhaddith of that gathering, who was Imam Sha'bi rahimahullah, who's a great scholar of his time, he says to him that, "Oh youngster, oh young man, why are you leaving my gathering? Sit down and study the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are my student." And he addresses Imam Abu Hanifa like he was already his student. Imam Abu Hanifa looks at him and he says to him that, "Oh Imam, I am not your student. I am not a student of knowledge, and nor do I have any inclination towards studying ilm. I'm a businessman and I want to continue earning the wealth of the world." So at this, Imam Sha'bi rahimahullah said to him that, "Oh young man, you should immerse yourself in the sciences of ilm, because I see greatness coming from you. I can see greatness coming from you." Imam Abu Hanifa says, when he told me this, it was enough motivation for me to put everything aside and start learning the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's when his journey started. And his first subject of knowledge, in the first area that he immersed himself within the sciences of knowledge, was the subject of Aqeedah. And this was important because at that time, when Islam had spread across the world, all the way from Spain and China and Greek, there were many types of philosophies or many types of ideologies that had confused the Muslims of those regions, and that had crept in doubts about their own belief. So Abu Hanifa first immersed himself within this field and subject of protecting Islam from external vices and fitnas. And he would debate any person that would dare raise a finger against Islam, and one by one defeat every single one of them. So Imam Malik rahimahullah says that One day Imam Abu Hanifa came to my gathering, and after my gathering someone asked me, Imam Malik, the Imam of Medina, that who was this great man sitting in your gathering, whom upon his face there was so much light and nur? Imam Malik said, this was Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Do you not know who he is? He is a man that if he was to try to convince me that this pillar that is made of wood is actually made of gold, I would have to believe him. This is the level and the strength that he has behind his words. He has some power behind his words, and he was able to use this to argue and protect Islam from all these different external vices of the different philosophers and the different ideologies that were creeping into the regions of Islam. And this is why in one incident, the Roman Empire sent a convoy with a very intellectual individual to debate the Muslims. And he reaches Kufa, the land of Kufa, and this was the land of scholars. This is the land where Umar radiallahu anhu sent Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, one of the greatest scholars of Islam, one of the greatest muhaddith and faqihs of Islam. This is why Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, his chain of teachers is directly connected to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. When Umar radiallahu anhu sent him, he told the people of Kufa, Inni athartukum ibn Mas'ud ala nafsi, that I am giving you preference of taking Ibn Mas'ud over myself, but I really want to keep him for myself because he is so knowledgeable. But nonetheless, he sends this extremely smart individual, the Emperor of Rome sends this man to debate these scholars of Kufa, the cream of the crop. And he gets here and he poses three questions. Number one, where is Allah facing? Number two, what was before Allah? And number three, what is Allah doing right now? Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these were the types of questions that he would have to face. So everyone remained quiet. Imam Abu Hanifa, being a younger scholar at that time, he raises his hand and he said, I'll answer you. The rest of the scholars of Kufa, dumbfounded, quiet, shocked, derailed, have no answers. Imam Abu Hanifa stands up and he says, you're so young, how are you going to answer my questions? He said, let me come. And he says, as for your first question, sir, that you asked, that where is Allah facing? He says, someone bring me a candle. And a candle is brought to him. And he lights the candle. And he asks the man, where is the light of this candle facing? And he replies, everywhere. And he says, similarly, the nur of Allah is everywhere. And Allah is seeing everything. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. And Allah knows whatever is happening in the world. يَفْعَلُ مَا يَشَاء. He does whatever He wants. It's like how this light of this candle is facing all directions. The nur and the knowledge of Allah is also facing all directions. So he is content from this answer. And next question was, what was before Allah? He says, why don't you count back from 10? And he counts back. And he gets to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So why don't you continue counting backwards? Are there any more numbers? He says, there's no numbers past 1. 1 is the last number. He says, similarly, there's nothing before Allah. هو الأول ليس قبله شيء وهو الآخر ليس بعده شيء. He was the first and there was nothing before him. And he will be there in the end and there will be nothing after him. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. He says, and the last question is, what is Allah doing right now? He says, you know, sir, you were asking the question, so you were given the stage. Now I'm answering it, so I should be given the stage. So he said, of course, that is right, that makes sense. So he gets off the stage, and Abu Hanifa walks on top of the stage, and Abu Hanifa answers the question. He says, right now, Allah just disgraced the person that was questioning His sanctity and questioning His oneness, and He gave respect to this youngster who was protecting his deen and protecting his oneness. This is what Allah is doing right now. And by this, the man was convinced, and everyone's iman was protected. And in somebody's eyes, he actually came back later in his life to accept Islam and the hands of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So this is what he did in the first portion of his life, where he protected Islam from the vices and the fitnas externally. And at this age, at this time, he was only 21 years old. And he had written one of the biggest and the largest and most dependable books of Aqeedah, known as Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar. Till today, the scholars of theology, the scholars of Aqeedah look back towards that to find references and to find texts and mutun to use to defend the sanctity of Islam even in our time, in our eras. And now at the age of 21, Allah has given him status. He is teaching Aqeedah in many different masajid. So one day he's sitting in his masjid in Kufa and he's teaching his Aqeedah, he's teaching his knowledge to his students, a very large group of students. And a woman comes to him and she asks him a question about praying in a specific time of the month while she's in her menses. So Abu Hanifa rahimahullah hears the question, asks her to repeat the question, but cannot come up with the answer. And he says to her, that why don't you go to the scholar by the name of Hammad, who has his dars, or who has his class in the Jami' Masjid of Kufa. Why don't you ask him for the answer and come back to me and tell me what he says. Come back to me and tell me what he says. So she goes to Hammad, asks the question, gets her answer, comes back to Imam Abu Hanifa, relates the answer to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Upon hearing the answer, Imam Abu Hanifa puts his books down, puts his pen down, and tells all of his students that from tomorrow, don't come to my class, because you won't see me teaching you. You won't see me here anymore. You won't see me having this dars. I am going to study under Hammad. And he goes to Hammad's class. And the first day, Hammad puts him in the back of the class. On the second day, after realizing the smartness and the sharpness of this man, he makes him sit right next to him on the right side. And Imam Abu Hanifa says, for the next 18 years of my life, never did I give a fatwa, and never did I move from that spot. I just sat right there, studying under Hammad. Never did I start my own dars, even though many people would come to me and tell me, why don't you start your own lesson in your own class? I sat in the suhbah, in the companionship of this teacher for 18 years. My dear brothers and sisters, today we learn one law, or one hadith, or two hadith, or we learn how to read Arabic, or we learn some type of tafsir of an ayah, and we feel like we are worthy enough to give a lecture. We feel like we're worthy enough to debate about Islam. We feel like we're worthy enough, and our knowledge is surpassing everyone else's knowledge. What a delusion that we live in. This was a man who had already reached the ranks of the Imam of Aqidah, but sat down humbly next to the feet of Hammad for 18 years. 18 years learning the fiqh of Hammad in the fiqh of Kufa, of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. And only when Hammad passed away, did he take that same spot of Hammad. But he told his students that I will not sit where Hammad used to sit. I will sit on the other side of the masjid, because I can never sit on the same spot as my teacher. And when Hammad rahimahullah used to teach, he had about 1,000 to 2,000 students in his classes. When Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah started teaching, within 3 days, there were more than 25,000 disciples that had come to his classroom. This is the level of acceptance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him. And then he started putting together his usul and principles of law for his madhab. And all the madhab that came after, there were more than 4 madhab, but the 4 that we know today, all of them were dependent upon this idea of conjuring up and creating usul where we can derive laws from. Imam Shafi rahimahullah says, لو لم تكن أبو حنيفة, we are all, each and every one of us are dependent upon the fiqh of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. الناس عيال على فقه أبي حنيفة, because it was him who put these usul together that we can also use for our own madhahibs and for our own school of thoughts. And this is how he continued his journey of knowledge and dissecting knowledge to all of the world. But then at that time in Kufa, there were many other challenges. See, Kufa was always a place of instability. Imagine the area or the land where the people complained about Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas to Umar radiallahu anhu. They had Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas removed as the governor of Kufa. Unstable area, unstable people, very unstable at that time. So Umar would send Ammar ibn Yasir, and they removed him. Umar sent Walid ibn Mughira, they removed him. So whoever would come, they would not be able to last in Kufa. They would not be able to last in this unstable climate. Now in this area, where there was always instability, there were different types of people. There was the Alawis, there was the Zahiriyas, and there was the Mu'tazilites. 3 different types of people, and the Khawarij. So at this time, the Umayyads were very staunchly looking at the climate of this area. And when they saw Abu Hanifa gain this type of fame and honor, they came to him. Ibn Hubayra comes to him, the governor of Kufa, and he says that we want you to be the Qadi of Kufa. And Abu Hanifa rahimahullah politely declines and says, I cannot do this job. This is not for me. And he continues pushing him and asking him to take this rank and take this job. but he does not take it. So he puts him in jail, and he remains in jail for a very lengthy period of time, for more than 3 months. Finally, he is let go, and at this time, every single day, he will be taken out of his cell and lashed 10 times in front of all the Muslims. And one is that a normal person like you and I is embarrassed in front of people. One is the leader of the Muslims being embarrassed in front of people. We feel so low in respect and honor even when we're embarrassed in front of a child. And what type of rank do we have in front of them? We have nothing. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah could have taken that job and saved himself from embarrassment. But he remained quiet, and he remained staunch and steadfast on his opinion of not taking this position for his own reasons. And every single day he would be whipped 10 times in front of everyone. And he would say that these whips don't hurt me. The only thing that hurts me is that my mother is brought out, and she also sees me being whipped. And when she sees me being whipped, she cries, and that hurts me. I can't take my mother tearing in front of me. That really pains me to see my mother in pain. And he had great respect for his mother. And his respect for his mother was greatly documented. We don't have enough time in this episode to go into the amount of respect that he had for his mother. But we can say one story about his respect for his mother, that his mother was an individual that whenever she would have a question, she would ask Imam Abu Hanifa to ask other people for the ruling for this mas'ala. She wouldn't even ask Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, Imam Abu Yusuf rahimahullah says that when the mother of Imam Abu Hanifa would walk inside the masjid and call Nu'man in the middle of his lesson, he would get up and tell everyone, if you want, you can go back home, or if you want, you can stay here, but I don't know how long I will take to come back. However long my mother needs me for, I'll be with my mother. This is the respect that he had for his mother. So he would say that I have no pain in these whips and lashes, but the only pain that I have is that my mother sees it and she cries, and I cannot bear the sight of my mother weeping for me. Nonetheless, finally he's released, and he leaves Kufa and he goes to Mecca, and he remains there for 2 years. And after hearing that the revolt of the Abbasi dynasty had taken over the Umayyads, he comes back to Kufa, thinking to himself that these people now, the Abbasis, are friends of mine, and they will not make me go through the same torture. Isa ibn Musa was a good companion of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Nonetheless, when he came back, the people of the Abbasi dynasty, Isa ibn Musa, who was a governor of Kufa at that time, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, who was a Khalifa, ordered the governor of Kufa, Isa ibn Musa, to ask Imam Abu Hanifa to become the Qadi once again. And once again, he declined this position humbly. He said, I cannot do this. I cannot do it, because I know there will be a time where I have to say something against you and the people of status and rank in your eyes, and you guys will not accept it. I cannot do this. So Isa ibn Musa also puts him in jail. This is why they say that, people are always dependent upon you when they need you. People are always going to ask for you when they need you. The same friend of his is now putting him in jail. The same friend that was with him and it was his companion is now putting him in prison, and also bringing him outside at the time of Dhuhr and having him lashed continuously for 15 days. 15 days. And on the 15th day, he is lashed, taken back to his prison cell. Yusuf rahimahullah says he has lashes all throughout his back. And we see him looking down and smiling. This is the last time we saw our teacher. He is being taken back to his prison cell. He is smiling, blood soaking his back. He walks back to his cell, and they come and they poison him. They give him poison. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah had an idea about this, but at that time he says, after all of this, what is left for me in the world? What will be left of me? And he is forced to drink this drink that was given to him. He drinks the drink, feeling the effect of poison, falls into sajda, still moist and wet from the blood that was seeping through the wounds of his back. He falls into sajda, and at this state and in this position, he leaves the world and goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These were people and legends of Islam that did not sacrifice only their knowledge and their wealth, but sacrificed their life for us today to say that we have books to read from. And people have the audacity, and people have the level of courage to raise their voice and to raise their fingers against such great personalities like Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi rahimahullah, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Malik. They have the right, they have the audacity to say these people were but innovators. These people were but innovators and mubtadi's. We don't follow them. We don't need to listen to them. If you don't want to listen to them, you don't listen to them. But never in your life should we ever dare to raise our tongues against such great people, whom were known as the most pious people of their time. Abdullah ibn Mubarak says, once a man came to Abdullah ibn Mubarak and said, who was this Abu Hanifa, who always uses intellect? Abdullah ibn Mubarak told him, Ikhsif, shut up, stay quiet. Do you not know who this man was? He says, for 40 years, he prayed Fajr with the same wudu that he prayed Isha with. Because the entire night he would be in tahajjud and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For 40 years. So Abdullah said, we do not know of any tabi'i, anyone other than the Sahabas who had finished the Quran in one raka'ah other than Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. And you speak ill about him? كان أورع الناس في زمانه. Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, who was a contemporary and also in opposition to a certain extent, says that we do not know anyone who was more pious than Abu Hanifa rahimahullah of his time. And this tells us that with knowledge comes piety, with knowledge comes composure, with knowledge comes humility. If we are seeking knowledge and we are finding ourselves to be proud and arrogant, and we are finding ourselves to be argumentative and combative, we know that knowledge of ours is not benefiting us but rather harming us. He was a man who was composed, and his knowledge was a means of him accepting his flaws and standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the nights. And Abu Yusuf says, someone asked him, when did your teacher start praying all night? He says, one day we were walking in the streets of Kufa, and the women of Kufa were saying, do you know that this man Abu Hanifa prays all night, and he prays Fajr with the same wudu as Isha? Imam Abu Hanifa heard this, and at this time of his life he was not doing that. When he heard this, he said to Allah, Ya Allah, make this true for them. Make this true for me. Make this assumption of theirs, this husn al-dhan of theirs come true. And if it was that day, and it was the last day before him leaving the world, that every single night he would pray tahajjud all night in the same wudu of Fajr and the same wudu of Isha. Just imagine that idea of praying Fajr and Isha with the same wudu. So when we speak about this great man, we do not confine him just to his knowledge of fiqh, but we understand his need and his importance at that time and climate of Islam, where so many different types of fitnas and so many different types of ideologies were creeping into even the smartest and most intellectual of scholars. But he was able to create this barrier and this fence against all of these fitnas. And after him, we see that aqeedah, the subject of aqeedah started flourishing. Before him, no one would study aqeedah. It was not something which was sought after from many scholars. But after him, it continued. And after him, we see the fiqh of Imam Malik rahimahullah, the fiqh of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, the fiqh of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah, and many others that came after him. He was a person that set the standard for the scholars that came after him. A man, a legend, an individual who was beautiful in complexion. كان أحسن الناس وجها. Imam Muhammad rahimahullah says Abu Hanifa was the most beautiful man, and his clothes were the most beautiful, and his smell was the most, he had the best of sense, and he never took a single dime for his teaching, because Allah had blessed him through his business. And he says about him that if people want to see a lantern of knowledge, let's look at Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. So for us also, it's important to understand the greatness of this man, to protect our tongues about speaking ill of these people. وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ هَيِّنًا. Allah says sometimes we say things and we don't think it's a big deal. وَهُوَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَظِيمٌ. But in reality, there are a big problem in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let us understand the greatness of these people and all the imams of fiqh and of hadith and tafsir and of history, and let us sink in the love of these people into our hearts, because indeed it is because of them and their hard work and their struggles and their knowledge that today it's easy to practice Islam to the rank in the level that we hope to and we try to practice it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let us make it easier for us to read more about these people and bring the love into our hearts. Jazakallah khair wa akhu da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.